So this one from Dawg Pound Daily, 3 prospects the Browns need to avoid in the 2024 draft. Number 3, they say T'Vondre Sweat. Sweat could be a similar prospect to Siaka Ika, listed 6'4". Sweat did better in testing than Ika, but his tape shows a player who is slow off the snap and offers little explosion. Throw in the recent arrest for DWI, it makes sense to pass on him. Number 2, Bucky Irving. Standing just 5'9", 192 pounds, Irving isn't built to be an every down back in the NFL. That means anyone adding him should be looking for a committee approach. Cleveland already has several players who can succeed in committee, including Foreman, Ford, and Hines. Number 1, Xavier Worthy. Set a new combine record, 4.21 in the 40 dash at the combine. Also incredibly thin, just 165 pounds, which is why Trevor Sikkema, PFF, calls him boom or bust prospect. Sweat, I saw Dane Brugler had a 4th-round grade on him, and even before, so this was published before the DWI, there were some concerns about his off-the-field antics, so that rate. Now we got 2 red flags going up on that one. Worthy's a guy that, and I get the 165, and he looks more like a football player than a track guy, which I wouldn't have said about Anthony Schwartz. Maybe that's the wrong guy to compare him to, but Worthy, he's intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, of those 3, I would say Worthy is the guy that would concern me the most. I mean, I think he's certainly better than John Ross was when he came out of Washington when he set the combine speed record. And again, a young guy, you would expect him to add on weight, as he naturally gets older. But I think there would be, some questions, as far as taking Worthy. Yeah, he's a speed merchant. He's the best speed merchant in this draft. There's no question about it. But I think for what the Browns kind of would need, a receiver, that would kind of be where I go away from. The one guy, other guy mentioned on receiver, running back, Bucky Irving. I'm not nearly as down on Bucky Irving as this article is. I think he's not a speedster. I think that's pretty clear when you look at the film. But what he is, he's elusive, and he doesn't lose speed when he bends the corner. He's got fluidity, and he can get to top speed very quickly, and he is tough. I mean, one of the toughest, sub 200-pound running backs you're going to find. And, that's not a guy you want to have as a bell cow running back, but how do we know the Browns want to have a bell cow running back? I think what we've seen from Kevin Stefanski in the past few years is he likes his tandem backfields. He wants multiple guys to get the football to keep the legs fresh for as long as possible. I mean, even when they had Nick Chubb, they still had Kareem Hunt to hand the football to. And, Jerome Ford has obviously kind of, become that number 2 guy, had to be the number 1 for the vast majority of the season with Chubb out. And even then, they still gave other guys opportunities to carry the football. But with T'Vondre Sweat, I get the Siaki Ika comparisons. I get that. But I think Sweat's a better player than Siaki Ika. I think he's a better athlete than Siaki Ika. I think he's more disruptive than Ika was. I get the character concerns. And obviously, the DWI right before the draft, it's a bad sign. And we know teams value culture. We know that, teams want to bring good culture players into a locker room. But there's also always those times when, GMs feel like, a player's talented enough where you want to see, even if he has some questionable, character concerns or whatever, that you bring him into the locker room. You feel confident in your culture that you'll get him, straightened down, get him in the direction he wants to go. Again, these guys are all young guys. These are like, early 20s, 23 years old, 24 years old at the very most. They still got time to mature. And I think ultimately, considering those things about T'Vondre Sweat, maybe the best place for him is a team that really has a great established culture in place where he could just, he'll have to fall in line and, just mature within that structure so he could show what kind of player he is.